Not so long ago, I printed off a beast of a Bretonnian army ready for Old World. Now I did this on the Frozen Sonic Mega 8KS, which is an absolute beast of a machine that's capable of printing off so much in just one go. Frozen very kindly sent me that printer a couple of months ago. I've had a blast with it so far. But I need to get some paint on these minis, and I figured we would start off with the Pegasus Knights. Thanks so much to Frozen for sponsoring this video. Now let's get on with some painting. So I printed off a whole bunch of stuff. I printed off these Pegasus Knights, I printed these Knights on horseback, I printed these Foot Knights as well, also a bunch of archers. Oh, and there was some men-at-arms and a couple of giants to go with it. Now the giants aren't meant to go with this army, they're meant to go with my greenskins, but they've ended up getting lumped with this project. So the vast majority of these miniatures are by Highlands Miniatures, and the giants are by Emang. Now getting them all printed off is really simple when you've got something like the Mega 8KS. It does mean you end up printing up probably too much, but you can fit so much on one build plate that literally I could probably print all of this off within a day, 2 days tops. So after I got the printer, I used that as an opportunity to get all of these things printed up and then get them all cleaned up, cured, and then primed. Now I started off with the Pegasus Knights just to kind of get an idea of what sort of paint scheme I wanted to go for. And for the most part, I used a lot of contrast paints and a lot of speed paints for this. By the time I got to the final steps, I wanted them to really stand out. I wanted those colours to really pop on the table because obviously they're Bretonnians, they have a load of different colours and I wanted that to really stand out. But I wasn't getting that effect from the paints that I was using. I started to pick out a few highlights and I realised I should have probably just gone for a white prime rather than a Zenithal prime. But at this stage, it's when I realised I needed to do something a little bit different and change up my painting style. I did actually really enjoy doing the Pegasus Knights and I went back in and I picked out pretty much every single feather with some white just to make them pop. So there's a lot of black under there and it contrasts very nicely with the white, but it took a long time. And in the end, I'm happy with the results, but not as happy as I wanted to be. Moving across onto the archers, and this is where things got crazy. And I realized I should have come up with a plan for this, and we'll come on to that later on. But I was trying to batch paint this army and things were starting to fall apart because I wasn't thinking ahead. I tried out a couple of different styles for this. So I did one which was contrast paints and speed paint. And like I mentioned with the Pegasus Knights, I wasn't massively happy with that. I then tried doing some like contrast paints and speed paints for parts of it. And then I mixed it out with some normal acrylic paints and I was happier with this. And then I tried something completely different. So I was doing a lot of yellows with these. So I did a lot of pink undercoats and then did yellows over the top. And that looked pretty good. But there was a lot of reds as well, and I really liked the reds were starting to turn out. So I decided, why not go back in and prime every single thing like this deep, dark browny red. So it was back to the priming table, got them all done in this like browny red, and then it was back over to the painting table to add those highlights and do lots of things. And this is potentially the first part where I actually thought about what I was doing going ahead. There would be a lot of flesh tones on there, which would work nice with a nice brown undercoat. And there were a lot of yellows on there, which would work nice with a nice brown undercoat. And there were a lot of reds. You kind of get where I'm going with this. So just thinking about your project ahead really does help sometimes because you can get the right color for your base coat and then you can work up from there. It's something that I don't normally do and I normally end up regretting because things fall apart massively. So I'd done a couple of tests on my archers and then I decided I needed some help because there was a lot of stuff here to get painted. So I got a little help from Mike from Me Mini Painting, who came up and helped me out with some of these models. Now he does some incredible painting bits and straight away when he sat down and looked at the batch in front of us, he pulled out a notepad and he started asking me the steps that we needed to go through. Now, me being me, I was just like, well, we're going to throw paint at them and we're going to go wild. And him being him, turned around and said, well, why not think about the steps? You know, let's keep it simple and methodical. We're dealing with a lot of models here. Turns out he's probably right. And I definitely took a lesson from this painting project where actually sitting down and looking at the models and thinking about the colors in advance and therefore the steps that you need to go. So what primer do you want to put down and what base coat do you want to put down and then what stages you're going to do it. Makes a lot of sense, and definitely something I'll be using going forward. So then we sat down and we started painting up all of these. Mike worked on the giants, and he also added in a lot of metallics, did a lot of the faces, whilst I worked tirelessly on getting some more yellows, blues, and reds down. Lots and lots of yellows, blues, and reds. We worked tirelessly through the day, apart from the bit where we stopped for pizza, because, you know, you're gonna devour some pizza at some stage, and things were starting to come together. The problem was that as we got partway through this, we realized there was no way that we were gonna get all of these painted up in a day. We soldiered on and we tried to do as best as we possibly could, but eventually time ran out and Mike had to disappear home. And at this stage, I was joined by another guest painter.
So Mike has left, and I still got a lot of things to paint. So I've enlisted some more help. Logan's come to join, although he's refusing to paint the knights. He's going to be painting some of his little dice heads instead, so let's see how this goes.
So with my son by my side, I kept on doing some final bits of painting just to try to get at least one batch of these done. Once I'd got a lot of paint on there and them looking as good as I could, I then started to do all the basing. So I put some Vallejo sand effects down and then just put some speed paint over the top of that just to blend in some color. I really like this brownish decay. If you water it down like 50-50, it comes out as this basically brownish decay. If you put it straight on there, it looks like a really dark brown. But if you do water it down, it's got this nice green tinge to it. It's great for basing. Now, something weird happened to me when I was doing the archers. And this hasn't happened to me in a long time, and I felt completely out of my depth. I'd really concentrated on getting all the blues down and the yellows down and the reds. And recently I've been having a lot of fun with painting red. I've really liked taking it from that really deep, dark red through to the bright red on top of it. And I've had a blast with it. And then I came onto the browns, and for some reason I just hit this paralysis where I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know if I wanted to go back in there and do it with white and then a speed paint over top. I was trying to figure out how to do the highlights, and I really struggled with it. And in my head, I couldn't figure it out. In the end, I grabbed like the biggest dry brush I could, and I mean the biggest dry brush I could. It's like that big, and it was a stupid thing to do. I hit it with cream all over, and then I went back in with some Nuln Oil and had some shades in there. But I'm not happy with the browns at all, but I just couldn't figure it out. And it's just something to bear in mind that sometimes you're gonna burn out while you're in the middle of a project, or hit this stage where you're not too sure how to move it forward because you've been fixated on all these different steps. And again, if I'd have sat down and planned out what I was actually gonna do for all these different steps, I probably wouldn't have stumbled quite as much as I did. But having all of these units in front of me, with lots of brown for me to paint, and me just not figuring it out, really made me come unstuck. To get around this, I did something probably more stupid, but something that I have told you guys to do in the past, that when you get stuck with a project and you're just feeling a bit burnt out, do something else that interests you. So I also had these Orcs by Highlands Miniatures that I also printed off on my Mega 8K. And I wanted to play with yellows. I don't know why, I really, really wanted to. So I did a load of work on these, and I'll have a separate video coming up in the future where I walk you through the mistakes that I made with this. So I got all of these done as well whilst trying to do a couple of extra bits for my archers and Bretonians, and it really got me back into the mood for painting. I think they look awesome. They're these big, chunky Orcs in armor. I really like the way the yellows work, and they're going to be fighting off against all my Bretonians as well. And by the time I got to the end of this, I picked out a couple of extra details on the archers, and at that stage I decided it was probably time to call this project done for the time being, for something to come back to. I've still got all the knights on horseback, they're all brown. The knights on foot mostly have their colours in there. I just need to go back in and do the metallics and add some shade. And then I've got all the men at arms as well, who have faces and metallics, but nothing else. So I need to really get invigorated to get back into this project and finish it all off. So quick note from editing Sean, and I almost didn't publish this video, but in the end I chose to because I think it's really important for people to remember that what you see on YouTube and Instagram and things like that, that final finished product has loads and loads of steps in between it, going from that initial conception stage and loads of errors and loads of blunders and everything. And the hobby isn't always easy. There's loads of growth opportunities and loads of things to learn. I think it's really important, to be honest with you guys, that a lot of movie magic goes on behind the scenes with the camera and the editing and the shooting and all of that, just to make things seem a little bit easier to follow along with. But there's a lot of steps in there, there's a lot of learning process and everything else as well. So hopefully this video kind of teaches you a couple of the errors that I've made, but also more importantly that, you know what, it's okay to stumble in this hobby. You're going to from time to time. There's going to be times where you feel out of your depth, or just that things are too much for you to do and you just need to switch focus and stuff like that. So in the end I did decide to put this video together and let you guys kind of see a little bit behind the scenes about how we sometimes stumble, and that it's okay to stumble, move on to something else, or come back and do it later. But all in all, the sculpts look amazing. They're all by Highlands Miniatures apart from the giants, which are by Emang, and they've all been printed on the Frozen Mega 8KS. It's an incredible machine that lets you print off loads and loads of stuff, but in my case, it let me print off far too much stuff that then I struggled to get painted in like one sitting, which was probably too much of an undertaking anyway, but food for thought for me in the future. I quite like the way the archers have turned out. I need to go back in and sort those browns out because they don't gel with me at the moment. I love what Mike's done with this giant. He looks fantastic. He's got these little love letters on his back. He's got some freehand on there on the shields as well. And all in all, I really like the way this is looking. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, especially when it comes to batch painting something of this size. I've gotten pretty good at batch painting like a regiment or 2 regiments, but I think in this case, I bit off too much. My learnings, and something I'd recommend to anybody out there who's looking to do something similar, is have a plan, get a paint scheme going, and probably do a couple of test models as well. All in all, I'm happy with the way this is looking. Pegasus Knights look pretty good. The archers are looking pretty good. Everything at the moment is looking pretty good. Just all the things that are pretty much done, I need to make them pop just that little bit more. And then the rest of it, I need to finish, But all in all, this has been a fun project so far, and I'll have plenty more old world content coming in the future. I've got a castle to paint, I've got all the rest of the stuff that's been printed off. I'm gonna go wild. Thanks so much to Frozen for sponsoring this video and allowing me the crazy freedom to print off something stupid like this, to then try and print off in a stupid challenge. You guys rock. Oh, and by the way, if you want to grab yourself a Frozen Mega 8KS, then you can find a discount code for 12% off in the description below. Just follow the links there, and you can get yourself one of these beasts of a machine. And thanks everyone out there as well for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Throw your random thoughts and everything below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.